So next up, on the discussion of publishers, what they can do. I know Stefan made some wonderful remarks there. We are delighted to welcome James Fleetham, who is the head of client sales at The Guardian. So he is going to further share some of the great work that The Guardian are doing around sustainability. So James, I can see you there.
Hello, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can perfectly hear you. Yes, I can hear you and can see you.
You cannot start screen sharing while the other participant is sharing. Have you got my presentation or shall I present?
You can present. We have it, but you may go ahead and present. You're ready.
Okay, let's try that again.
And then if there are any questions for James, please do put those into the Q&A box. And then James, if we've got time at the end, I'll pose those to you.
Perfect, thank you. Right.
Amazing.
Okay. Is that loaded?
It is, yeah, I can see it clearly.
Perfect, excellent. Okay, that was smooth, wasn't it? Luckily, we've got a bit less time too. Perfect. Okay, I'll introduce myself. My name is James. I'm head of client sales at The Guardian, and more relevantly for today, I'm part of our sustainability strategy group here as well. So thank you for having us. Thanks for having The Guardian. The Guardian has been covering this subject unbelievably for 160 years and is widely regarded as the publisher producing the best climate journalism in the world. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about what we're doing right now around sustainability and what being a sustainable media organisation means to us. So given that we're at a climate conference and I'm not the first up, I'll assume the audience knows how important this subject is. Consumers, also known as people, know this is an important subject as well. I think what people don't know or what they don't want to think about quite so much is just how quickly we have to act. This have started to use the word scary, which I find pretty scary in itself. COP27, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that humanity is on a highway to climate hell, and the fight for a livable planet will be won or lost in this decade. And I think examples of extreme weather and devastation that we've seen in the last 12 months have really brought the reality of climate change into sharp focus for lots of people. Sadly, the Mississippi tornado being the latest example of that. The war in Ukraine and the scramble for energy has seen many countries row back on their commitments to end the use of coal. And we're also seeing that being used by some to push a narrative that net zero goals are too expensive. I think we've touched on carbon credits a couple of times this morning, but The Guardian published a recent investigation into carbon credits and showed that these aren't really working in their current form. More than 90% of offsets for the world's biggest provider, Vera, are phantom credits, and actually they could be making global heating worse. In short, we can't put this off any longer. The time for talk is over. And I think last week's IPCC report told us that we need to act now or it's going to be too late. So you might wonder what any of that has to do with advertising. Well, I think, first of all, Greenpeace gave us a pretty good reminder in Cannes last summer that we can't look at the advertising industry through rosé tinted glasses. Joke for you there. Purpose disruptors have a statistic that say that advertising contributes 32% to everybody's carbon footprint in the UK. When it comes to the climate crisis, the people we make advertising for feel a bit powerless. But actually, as an industry, we have a huge amount of power. I think the EU's new rules protecting consumers from greenwashing show exactly that. Ultimately, we're in the business of changing behaviour. And I think at our best, advertising doesn't just reflect modern culture, it actually defines it. Fiona Harvey is The Guardian's environmental editor, and she says that this shouldn't be a burden and building a better, more livable planet is a good thing. I think this is the best advertising challenge that the industry has ever had. So what are The Guardian doing about this? So I think it's important to say everybody's doing things differently, as you've heard from the other speakers, particularly on the previous panel, thanks to all of them. At The Guardian, our climate pledge is how we capture the steps that we're taking and how we communicate them to our readers and to our advertisers. We made our first climate pledge back in 2019, where we said that the climate crisis is the defining issue of our generation. We updated that pledge last year, highlighting the progress that we've made towards 6 commitments you can see here to confront the climate emergency. So these are continuing our long-standing record of powerful environmental reporting, which is known around the world for its quality and for its independence. It's reporting on how environmental collapse is already affecting people worldwide, including during natural disasters and extreme weather events. We will publish up-to-date global indicators that point to the urgency of this situation. A good example of that is our CO2 tracker, which you will find on our environmental page. We are going to eliminate 2/3 of emissions from our business by 2030. So that's over a 10-year period. We currently have the strongest commitments to reduce emissions of any media owner. We will seek to decouple our business and finances from fossil fuel extractive companies, and we will continue to be transparent in our progress. We have a sustainability director here, Julie Richards. Some of you may be familiar with Julie. She spent a long time, years in fact, expanding and improving the way that we measure emissions and putting plans in place to reduce those. And we think we've got a really robust plan in place. As anyone involved will know, it's a constantly evolving picture. And in terms of standards and the scope of activities that you include in your company's footprint. We need to understand our digital footprint better. I think that's the hardest thing to measure. So we need to keep working on it. We've worked with academics, we've worked with environmental consultancy partners to understand the impact of our digital content. And we're currently looking at the carbon emissions caused by the serving of digital ads on our platforms and are in early conversations about how to tackle that. To note, I think it's an important note that this activity relies on 100% transparency across the supply chain of digital advertising. We're working with advertising trade bodies on this action, people like your good selves at IAB Europe. Our journalism, ultimately, though, is the thing that has the biggest impact. That's what I want to return to. So our industry is about the power of communication and the power to change minds. And we believe the best way to do that and the biggest impact, ultimately, that we can have is through our journalism. It's not just us that say that. In 2015, former UN climate chief Christiana Figueres said that without the work of The Guardian, Paris Agreement would have been much harder or perhaps even impossible. I think that's worth remembering when we talk in forums like this about operational emissions. Of course, it's really important that we tackle them, but in media, it's the messages and it's the ideas that we put out there that will have the biggest influence in the end. We've been fighting the climate crisis for over 160 years. I mentioned that right at the top of this. Conceivably, in 1863, we published a report in The Guardian, which carried some of physicist John Tyndall's findings on how greenhouse gases were blocking solar radiation from being reflected back into space. So this isn't a new thing. What is new is now we publish a piece of environmental journalism every 3 hours. So in 2021, that meant more than 3,000 environmental stories read by more than 65 million people around the world. In total, readers of The Guardian spent a combined 538 years reading this. We try to put real lives at the heart of our reporting rather than just complicated science reports. And that's why not just our environmental journalists who are covering this subject, we explain how the climate crisis is affecting every aspect of everyday life, food to fashion. We know that our readers really want to understand how to take action and how to live more sustainably. So we really try to weave that into our journalism. In fashion, when we showcase a new trend, we suggest options on how you could rent the look or maybe buy a vintage version. Or another example would be in food, where our cooks flag when you could use meat with a lower environmental impact or how you might veganize it. In technology, the sustainable use of resources is an important strand of our coverage, and our product reviews incorporate key sustainability rankings. Our scrutiny of big tech companies includes their environmental credentials. The environment matters more to our readers. We know that from our reader revenues team. It's the biggest driver for Guardian supporters. And in 2021, our readers raised more than £1 million for climate justice. It's really important that we hold ourselves to account, so to improve our performance and to look beyond the important but maybe slightly narrow lens of carbon emissions and think about the type of company employer that we actually want to be. So in 2019, we were the first major media organisation in the world to become BCorp certified. I think most people are familiar with BCorp these days. I'm sure people are on this call, but for those that aren't, it's equivalent of a fair trade sticker for business. And it means that we value purpose as much as profit. BCorp was really appealing to us because we wanted to measure our purpose, but we weren't really sure how to do it. It's quite easy to cherry pick a few initiatives that you're doing and talk about those, but do you prove that this idea of purpose and behaving ethically is really embedded throughout your business? So we looked at lots of different ways, and we could have come up with our own internal assessment, but that would have been marking our own homework. So what we liked about BCorp was that it was broad ranging. It brings together lots of different things. It provides a rigorous external viewpoint that holds us to account and makes sure that we are being honest with ourselves about where we're doing well and where we need to improve. The other important point, I think, is it's also an easy shorthand for readers to understand that this is the type of business we are, and it's a growing trend. I think that comms aspect is really important because a lot of the work on sustainability is not particularly glamorous. So you have to find tools that help you tell a story about it. So what does it mean to embed purpose into your business? I think a really good example of that is from 2020, when we took the decision to ban fossil fuel advertising in The Guardian. Lots of people ask about the revenue impact and how teams felt about it. Sorry everyone, I'm just being chucked out of a room, but bear with me. Okay. Lots of people ask about the revenue impact and how our teams felt about it. We've got a mixed revenue model at The Guardian with significant input from advertising, but unlike lots of media owners, that is not our only revenue stream. It was jarring to advertise something that was directly contributing to the climate crisis. Fossil fuels is an easy line for us to draw, as their lies, their lobbying, their greenwashing for more than half a century have made our plight much worse. We knew readers cared because they told us as much, and we were extending our environmental coverage in the newsroom. The Guardian is a brand too, so this might be best summed up in the words of famous ad man Bill Bernbach, who said, "It's not a principle until it costs you money." We saw an overwhelming positive reaction from readers and environmental campaigners. As you can see, Greta and Leo liked it a lot too. Some advertisers celebrated that decision with us, ran bespoke copy. We hoped it might inspire others, and we're a bit surprised more have followed suit, especially when you consider the increasing number of people in the industry that are refusing to work on fossil fuel briefs. Because of our credentials, we're really attractive to advertisers who would like to get a sustainability message across, but maybe aren't there yet in terms of what they're actually doing. There are growing concerns that some businesses are falsely promoting environmental or green credentials to capitalise on changing consumer preferences. The ASA has been calling for stricter regulation on the green claims made by brands after its latest research revealed consumers find that current terminology is challenging and it's difficult to understand. There are currently no official definitions for terms such as carbon neutral or net zero, which is a bit mad, and no fixed rules for how businesses should achieve these. The ASA is also cracking down on greenwashing across the industry. You've seen that with things like the HSBC ruling. Brands should be able to back up their claims robust with credible and up-to-date evidence. To tackle this problem, we support and educate our clients and the industry on this topic to help them avoid greenwashing. We've rejected content campaigns which overreach or are inconsistent in regard to green issues. Offsetting conversation at The Guardian goes along the lines of that carbon offsets can only ever be a sticking plaster, they're not a cure. So carbon credits should not be used as an excuse to put off the systemic reforms to our energy generation and usage that are currently needed. Ultimately, we have to reduce emissions drastically to prevent a catastrophe, and offsetting alone will never achieve that. So on a final note, to summarise, our priority areas are continuing our commitment to publish quality environmental journalism every day online, in print, in audio and video, working to understand our digital footprint better, working with the industry to take action. A final word to you guys is, it's easy to listen to people at events like this and feel like you have to get everything right first time, but a commitment to sustainability requires effort, it requires humility. No one gets it right all of the time. The further you go, the more difficult the questions you have to address. Measurement and action take a lot longer than setting big goals. So the final word for us is The Guardian is distinctly different on this subject. Our journalism is changing policy and global awareness. We don't have a billionaire owner. We don't have shareholders. Every page, every view, every impression, every listen funds the best climate journalism in the world. And that is a really simple way to make a difference. So that's our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, James. So much information packed in there. One quick question I had. I love the pledge that you guys have set up, the different 6 steps that you've got. Yeah. Do you see your pledge evolving to incorporate some of the suppliers or partners that you work with across the supply chain? And are you currently undertaking efforts to make sure they're maybe more aligned to some of the work that you're doing in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I've just been kicked out of a meeting room. So the weird lighting and dodgy camera. Yes, so the pledge has evolved. As I said, we originally made that commitment in 2019. We updated it last year. And part of the purpose of that is to be really transparent about the work that we're doing behind the scenes at The Guardian. as I mentioned, the piece that we're finding hardest in this is the digital piece, around the advertising supply chain. We need to address that, and we're quite a long way down the road in conversations with people that we think can help make those emissions more transparent. Yeah, the pledge will be updated when we are confident we have a good understanding of what that picture currently looks like and the work that we need to undertake to improve.
Thank you, James. A big thanks also for being a part of our Sustainability Standards Committee. And we will let you get back to finding another room at the Guardian.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks so much, James.